Hi, I'm Ed Friedland, and you're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. You know, a lot of people think they're too old or it's too late for them to learn how to play an instrument. So I created ForBassPlayersOnly.com for people over 50 who want to play bass, because I believe you're never too old and it's never too late to experience the joy and the pleasure of making music. ForBassPlayersOnly.com. That's what we're all about. We have got a very special guest this week, Ed Friedland, who's probably written more bass books than I have. At the time we interviewed him, actually, Ed, did you know this? I'm coming up on 800 interviews on ForBassPlayersOnly.com. You were number 2.
Wow.
June 22nd, 2009. And you were telling me about a then new Hal Leonard book you had coming out on pentatonic scales.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You were playing with a rock trio with Phil Brown and his Jimmy Project.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember him.
And you were living in Austin, and you said you like to drive around the back roads, find little towns, check out antique stores, look for home-style cafes with great pie or chicken fried steak, or go in search of the best Texas barbecue. I think you need to bring us up to date. What's going on? Oh, I forgot to mention the biggest thing of all. Since 2015, you've been playing with Grammy award-winning band, the Mavericks, with whom you've recorded, I think, 5 albums so far, at least.
5, yeah. 5.
So, hello, Ed. It's good to see you. We've hung out in Nashville, and are you ever going to let this guy talk, or are you going to keep giving him an introduction? Well, he doesn't need a big introduction, but he merits a big introduction.
I also need a big finish. Big finish.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Well, I have such fond memories of hanging out with you in Nashville and at the NAMM shows and at the Warwick Bass Camp in Markneukirchen, Germany.
You said that very well.
I have never said it the same way once.
I know.
So what's going on? Start anywhere.
Well, like I was saying, since 2009, really nothing has changed. It's the same old. No, I mean, it's kind of amazing because as you mentioned, 2015, I went on the road with the Mavericks, and that really precipitated a whole series of humongous life changes for me. Up in between 2009 and 2015, to catch up with that, I don't know. I mean, I lived in Austin for a long time, and it was playing a lot of different scenes. It was a really kind of a great time in a way, because while I was there actively kind of to absorb some of that Texas musical tradition. I mean, that the Texas musical tradition is infiltrated, so it's just become the part of the American, musical tradition, and there's a lot in Texas, musically speaking. So I really was lucky to have a chance to really get some of that and live there long enough to where it kind of like it's not washing off anymore, But
how long did you live there?
It was 10 years.
Oh,
2006 to 2016.
You're from the Northeast somewhere, aren't you?
I'm a New York City boy, born and raised. But it's been a long. I mean, I haven't lived in the city in 40 years. I don't know. When was it? 1984, I think I left.
You said something in your first interview. Did you go to high school with Marcus Miller?
Yeah, I did. I went to the High School of Music and Art, which is it's related. It's won the LaGuardia Performing Arts School of Performing Arts. It used to be a music and art high school and performing arts high school. Performing arts was the Fame School. And music and art was uptown. And yeah, I was there the same year as Marcus and Kenny Washington, Bob Franceschini, Omar Hakim. I mean, some of my classmates have they've changed music, And they changed me, man, because I'll tell you where I was coming from, and then being exposed to these guys, even at their age, playing ridiculously good, was a real eye opener. I mean, Marcus was the first guy I ever heard slap. So I was ruined, right? Because, I mean, even back then he was the king, at least in our world, and soon everyone else's world, right? So, that was a pretty huge influence there. And just, to hear what, like the rhythm, like him playing with Kenny Washington and him playing with Omar back in high school. I mean, those were some of the earliest rhythm sections that I really paid attention to. I mean, I listened to rock music and blues, but to see these guys perform was really like very influential, for sure. Yeah, very inspiring.
I'll say.
Yeah.
Austin. So what took you down to Austin?
I'm back I live in Tucson now. Again, I at the time was living in Tucson prior to Austin, and my daughter grew up. She went away after high school. She's like, I'm out of here, and I felt like, hey, this is a perfect time to make a change, and the reputation for the city's musical tradition and all that was a big draw. And I had a great time there, and I learned some really important skills. And I will definitely say, look, obviously before I moved to Austin, I was a skilled player. I had a lot of academic skill background, reading, theory, harmony. I wrote books, I teach, I'm a music geek of a sort, right? Trained and all that. But the skill stuff that I learned in Austin was really not so academic. It was a place for me to learn a different set of skills because, when you approach everything from an academic jazz-based perspective, there's a lot there. There's a lot to work with, but it also limits you in some ways because there are venues or avenues of work that all the jazz harmony, all the technical skill, all the high-end information that you could possibly have is of absolute no help to you. It doesn't matter. And when you move to a town with a skill set, and you kind of think, yeah, I'm pretty, I'm experienced, I'm an experienced guy. And then you move to a place where the value system, like what constitutes a good bass player for this gig, is not at all based on the paradigm you've worked with your entire life. It was a really eye-opening experience. It had nothing to do with your skills. Austin is not really I don't want to characterize it too badly, or not badly, but like too broadly, because there's a lot of skilled cats there. There's a lot of top-notch world-class guys who can read music, play changes, and all of that, But the scene that I was involved in, the more Americana roots kind of scene, which is ultimately where I wound up, right? It's a different thing. It's like your academic knowledge is not prized. In fact, it's held in very deep suspicion. It's like, really? This guy's a jazz player? They look at you sideways like, oh, how's this guy going to fuck it up, Because jazz players have a very, high, good jazz players have a high functioning sort of set of, like, this is what I grasp. I grasp. I know it all. You get really like, I hear everything. I know everything. I can hear everything in this song. And yet they can't play a C major triad to save their life because they got to throw some bullshit on it, So there's the whole art of simplification of what I play, how I play, what I listen to, what I find of value, like what I want to hear. It's all simplified. And I learned, because there are cats out there playing that I look at objectively in Austin and I say, man, I got so much on this cat. Why is this guy getting it? Because they don't need that shit. They don't need that from you. They don't need the guy who wrote 20 books. They need a guy who's going to play, boom, 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 and make it feel like he believes it, And that's the thing. It's about the intention that you play with, not what you play or how many notes you. It's what's your intention? What are you doing? Do you mean this, or are you just collecting a paycheck? Because there's no paychecks in Austin. Nobody gets paid, so you better love what you're doing, or else find another reason to do it. Because
I really thought about it that way, because what you're describing sounds to me just like discipline and musical maturity, because I've always felt like the jazz players can adapt to any situation, even if it doesn't require a flat 9, sharp 11,
yeah,
13. I played in the orchestra at the University of Miami, and we were playing Stravinsky, and the conductor called every single person in the orchestra into his office one at a time. And he says, play this passage for me. And it was good 5/8 and 7/8 and 4/4 and 3/4. And I played it. I nailed it. Okay. And he looks at me, he says, are you a jazz player? I said, jazz major. I said, yes. He says, I thought so. I said, why? He said, jazz guys can play anything. So what's wrong with having that stuff in your back pocket, knowing when to pull it out and when not to pull it out, as long as you can play, at Austin city limits and start playing bebop licks,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, you have to. I didn't lose any of the stuff that I had prior, but I learned that wasn't enough. And that's the thing where I think some people with a jazz perspective, they stop there and they devalue other forms of music. It was an attitude I ran into a lot in the New York scene when I was, approaching that. This is in the early 80s. Yeah, I picked up on a very, there's a closed mindset. And unfortunately, I was very influenced by that, and I find that, breaking away from all that has really changed. It's changed everything, But I was that for very many years. I was a jazz snob. I was, so I had to go to Austin to break that, And,
I'm glad you did. There's plenty of snobbery in classical music. I think
every kind of music. I mean, the blues. Here's the funny thing: is like I've been playing the blues, as a style, a genre for many years, and yet in Austin I really didn't break into the blues thing. There's a bit of a and I don't want to just blame all. This is anywhere the blues scene. Whenever you pigeonhole, this is the blues, this is jazz, this is country. You start getting into like, well, these are the parameters that separate this from that. I mean, I get that. I'm very lucky. See, now, all right, blowing a lot of air about stuff that doesn't really matter in a way. But nowadays, I play with a band that is kind of, if they're known for anything, they're known for not being known for any one thing in particular. We have a very definite sound as a band, a genre that we sort of have that's almost unto ourselves, but it's an amalgam of like so many things. It's ska, it's Cuban, it's R&B, it's country, it's Tejano. I mean, all forms of Latin music or influences, rock and roll. I mean, the band and we play all these different types of songs, and they're all different and they're all the same. And it's like, so it's like when people say, well, what do you guys do? It's like, it's like every style of music that I've ever learned how to play all at once,
Crazy. Hey, one quick Austin question. I interviewed Roscoe back last year. Did you cross
Roscoe, he's the bomb.
Cross paths with him when were you down there at the same time?
Yeah, I we know each other through the world of bass, and I, he was, especially most of the time I was in Austin, he was on the road a lot. When he had the Leonard Cohen gig and stuff, he was gone for years, But we know each other. We're not super tight, but I think we like each other. I like him. I had fun. Well, once I remember, when he was playing at Antone's with some folks, it was like there was a blues night there, and I was in the crowd, and he recognized me, and he called me up, come up and sit in. And I'm like, well, Like now, yeah, I mean, they're playing, they're actively playing the song, and then I figured, like I'll wait till they stop and I'll come up and I'll play. No, he's like, no, come on now. And like
in the middle of the song?
Really? Yeah, right. While they're playing. So we walk up while we're playing. This must be a Texas thing. And he's playing, he like playing with one hand, grabs the strap, and I walk into it, and then I just like fall into the strap, and like, I mean, nothing, we did it.
Because of that?
We pulled it off, but it was just kind of, it was like the handoff. It was like running a relay race or something.
You got any videos of that, Ed?
Oh God, no. I mean, that happened once. I don't know if anybody, I mean, who knows? I'm not gonna, I was not filming at the time.
You mentioned For Bass Players Only. Thank you very much. As you know, we're an instruction site. I've got people from all over the world coming every day. Most of us that I'm attracting are men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. That's why I made reference to people 50. And a lot of them have arthritis and things that happen to us when we get into the 50s, 60s, 70s, tendinitis and pain in the shoulder, and a lot of them are recovering from surgery. It's not like I'm running a geriatric ward, but just trying to paint a picture for you and give you some context. They're not going to make a career out of playing bass. They want to play some blues shuffles. They want to play some classic rock riffs. They want some walking bass, little funk R&B. So now that you've got that picture, you're an educator. You've written a lot of books and you've taught a lot. And I wanted to ask you what advice you can impart to somebody like that who wants to learn. What do you think is important for them?
Well, when I was teaching actively, and I'm semi-retired in that, I'm on the road, but a lot of my students back when I was actively teaching were this demographic you're talking about, older guys. I mean, I look at my YouTube analytics and it's mostly guys. Most of my followers that look at my stuff are, men 40s and up, and, that's the demographic. They're people who maybe remember me from, Bass Player Magazine in the 90s, and these guys are now in their, whatever, 40s, 50s, but yeah, I fully agree with what you said in the beginning. Your spiel about it's never too late, you're never too old to. I fully endorse that sentiment. And sometimes, I mean, working with folks who are, if someone of that vintage comes in, they've made the decision. I want to do something, and so that's really good. But sometimes I think it's important to let it be known, hey, it is a possibility for you. Don't immediately rule it out, because some people do. They think that bass, I think, is a fairly forgiving instrument because the neck is bigger. So like if you're having arthritis or joint stiffness type thing, I think guitar is a lot harder because it's a finer motor skill. You're dealing with more of the knuckle bends and the fingertips, and that can be, I think, I don't know, I really don't experience that, but I mean, I think that would be harder. And bass, it's more of like, you can do a lot with just like 1 and 4, 1, 2, 4, 3. It's like, it's not about the dexterity. It's like learning how to function as a bass player does not require technique of, virtuoso level. In fact, I venture to say it could be a hindrance sometimes. I see a lot of people, working towards the virtuoso thing is blown up online, man. There's like 9-year-olds out there who play me under the freaking table, but let them walk a mile in my shoes. I mean, I'm not intimidated, but I think it's amazing to see the level that some of these young cats are exhibiting. It's phenomenal. It's mind blowing, and
it's phenomenal, but it's a little scary too, because that's not what people want in a bass player to do. That like the Mavericks gig or any other kind of gig where you got to lay it down. And
what I'm starting to see is that there's two worlds here. There's the real world, if you want to call it real. I mean, it's all it's all an illusion, my friend. But, there's the three-dimensional physical realm where I'm out there doing a gig. And then there's a cat who's got like a bass channel on YouTube. And, we're both YouTube guys, and we pay attention to how many people are subscribing and all of that. There's guys with millions and millions of views on every video they put up. And like Davey 504, who I think is really a very talented cat and really funny and entertaining, and Charles Bertrude, mind blowing. I mean, the stuff these guys are playing, it's like, and so there's that world, and I don't know how much. I'm sure these guys play gigs once in a while, but what they've spawned, they're like maybe, the high end of that world. But they've spawned a whole generation of people who aspire to that. I want to have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to play really flashy, technically based solo bass compositions, or play along with a track, or, that kind of thing, like where the focus is all on what I'm doing. And that's another world, I mean, and look, these guys are making a living, man. Some of these cats, those kind of views, I mean, I never did YouTube, approached it like as a way, like I'm going to make a living off of this. And many people do now. But but that's a different world, I'd like to think that a cat with that much skill could just come in and do my gig, which is the easiest possible thing to do for a bass player in the world. But, there's a resistance. Most people don't want to. You have to want to play simple. You have to want. For me, it's a relief it's like I don't have to be clever anymore. All I have to do is play what's right, what sounds right here. What I'm listening. If you listen to the music you're playing, ideally you evolve to a place where you automatically play exactly the perfect thing. That has been my goal. Musical goal, I think, in the past 10 to 15 years, is like, I just want to automatically go to the right, perfect thing. And right is a matter of opinion. So what's right for one guy, you're working for someone. So obviously, if the boss wants something specific, I'm going to give it to him. But if nothing is, like most of the time, no one says, I want you specifically to do this, or I specifically don't want you to do that. No one has to say that stuff, because the reason this particular group, and many groups that I think function well musically, is like you get the right person for the job and you don't have to tell them what to do, and that's the way when I led bands, put my own groups together, I try to approach it that way, because I hate even though I'm a music educator, and I've always, I taught ensembles, you tell students, do this, do that. That's you're directing students to become better musicians. But I don't want to do that when I put my own band together, or, like I want the cats who know what to do.
I came across this quote that I'd like to share with you. I'd like to get your opinion on this. As a bass player, my main focus has always been to get in there and make the groove happen. I want to connect with the rhythm and make it breathe. Even though I might be playing only quarter notes, I get inside them and try to add the life force. My goal is to listen to the music in a holistic way, like an audience member, and then play what sounds right. Sometimes it's truly a selfless act. It's not about the bass or yourself. It's about the music. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I believe that's me. Didn't I say that?
That is you.
Sounds like something I'd say.
That is
Yeah,
you
well,
from March of 2009, 2009.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think when I said that, it was at the beginning of that discovery for me, in a way. That was part of when I moved to Austin. That's part of where my musical education went. And so in 2009, those were almost like revelations to me, in a way. It's like, even though I always knew that, I mean, it's not like, but I started living that in a more simplistic way and stuff. But yeah, no, I still stand by every word of that, and it's what I've just been saying anyway. I mean, there are people who feel like, oh, we should all be free, and everything is free. You play what you feel. But the thing is if you want to work, if you want to get a gig, you want to play with other human beings, there's rules that we sort of, everybody adapts to a certain set of agreements. Like, yeah, I'm not going to start a fill in the middle of your fucking vocal chorus, that's an agreement that I made, a gentleman's agreement. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play a big fat whole note under the first measure of your, I'm just not going to not like pull focus,
What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
Well, this is where I go into my Nigel, waka waka the chapeau shop. Blue. No, I don't know. I've never done anything other than music. So I've never had the chance to try something and say that would be fun. But sometimes I can enjoy dealing with people, but
Sometimes, huh?
yeah, sometimes I enjoy teaching, and like I could have perhaps at one point seen myself as a teacher of another subject, even, maybe, but I wouldn't do it now. The immediate goal is to just keep doing what I'm doing now. I like my job. I like what I do. I like the people I work with. I'd like it to improve. Things improve, I would like to see things comfort level. Touring, you're throwing yourself, like I am not an autonomous being when I'm at work. My 24 hours a day, I'm working, even though I'm just sitting around. 2 hours a day, I'm having the time of my life. The other 22 hours, I'm working, I'm living in a place that's not my home with people that I work with. It's, it's a different kind of job. You go home. Now I'm home, but that happens infrequently. So, but yeah, no, I'm not a big planner. I don't plan. I just live and deal with it as it arises. I try to look ahead, of course, pay the bills, make sure everything is, I'm not setting up roadblocks for myself, but once you get to a certain point and the details of life sort of take care of themselves, all the bills are on auto pay. All I have to do is live. I don't have to write checks. I don't have to worry about missing a payment. I just live. It's it's a privileged way to live, I think, at this point. Maybe at this age, I'm ready and I've earned it or whatever, or I'm ready for it. I can appreciate it, So, yeah.
That's a good point to end on, I think. A good note. Sure. Ed, there's been so many gems that you've imparted in the last while.
Yeah, that's me. That's Mr. Gem. Well, Gem. Look, following in the long line of the bass player as philosopher of the group, I strive to be lukewarm water, and that's the place I want to be, between fire and ice, lukewarm water. Okay,
Ed the philosopher.
Well, that's my Spinal Tap reference.
Right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending this time, and thanks for imparting so much wisdom.
Oh, thanks, John. I appreciate you catching up with me, and it's always good to see you.
You too. Keep up the good work with the band and with life and everything else. We hope to see you in person soon, too. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. A lot of people think they're too old or it's too late for them to learn how to play an instrument. So I created ForBassPlayersOnly.com for people over 50 who want to play bass, because I believe it's never too late and you're never too old to experience the joy and the pleasure of making music. ForBassPlayersOnly.com. That's what we're all about. Thanks again to our special guest this week, Ed Friedland. I will see you all back next week, same place, same time, right here at ForBassPlayersOnly.com. In the meantime, let's play bass.